Hey there, fellow gardeners! Welcome back to another deep dive here at Soil Sage Chronicles. Today, we're tackling one of my absolute favorite gardening techniques that completely transformed how I approach my vegetable garden succession planting. If you've ever found yourself drowning in zucchini one week and desperately craving fresh lettuce the next, this technique is about to become your new best friend. I still remember my first year of serious gardening when I planted an entire row of lettuce all at once in early spring. For about 2 weeks we had the most incredible salads, and then suddenly, everything bolted in the heat, leaving us lettuceless for the rest of the season. That's when I discovered succession planting, and honestly, it felt like unlocking a secret level in the gardening game. Succession planting is essentially the art of timing your plantings to ensure continuous harvest throughout the growing season. Instead of planting everything at once and hoping for the best, you're strategically staggering your sowings to create a steady supply of fresh produce. Think of it as creating a conveyor belt of vegetables that keeps moving from seed to harvest all season long. The beauty of this approach lies in its flexibility and efficiency. You're not only maximizing your garden space but also working with natural growing cycles to maintain peak freshness and flavor. It's particularly valuable for quick-growing crops that have short harvest windows, but the principles apply to virtually every vegetable in your garden. What really excites me about succession planting is how it mirrors natural ecosystems. You know, in nature, plants don't all germinate on the same day. They stagger their emergence based on environmental conditions, creating a more resilient and productive system. We're simply applying this wisdom to our managed garden spaces. Not all vegetables are created equal when it comes to succession planting. Some crops practically beg for this treatment, while others are better suited to single, well-timed plantings. Let me walk you through the stars and the supporting cast of succession planting. Leafy greens are absolute champions for succession planting. Lettuce, spinach, arugula, and Asian greens like bok choy and mizuna have relatively short growing cycles and definite harvest windows. These crops can go from bitter to bolted faster than you can say Caesar salad, making regular sowings essential for continuous harvests. I typically plant these every 2 to 3 weeks from early spring through fall. Root vegetables like radishes, carrots, and beets also respond beautifully to succession planting. Radishes in particular are fantastic for beginners because they mature so quickly. You can see results in just 3 to 4 weeks. Carrots and beets take longer, but they reward you with steady harvests when planted in succession. Bush beans are another succession planting superstar. Unlike pole beans that produce continuously once they start, bush beans give you one main flush of production and then kinda peter out. By planting new rows every 2 to 3 weeks, you can keep those crisp, tender beans coming all summer long. Even some herbs benefit from succession planting. Basil, cilantro, and dill can be planted multiple times throughout the season to ensure fresh harvests, especially since cilantro and dill tend to bolt quickly in hot weather. The key to successful succession planting lies in understanding timing from multiple angles. You need to consider your local climate, the specific requirements of each crop, and your family's consumption patterns. It's kinda like conducting an orchestra where every instrument needs to come in at just the right moment. So, start by understanding your local frost dates and growing zones. This information really forms the foundation of your succession planting calendar. For cool season crops like lettuce and spinach, you can begin planting as soon as the soil can be worked in spring and continue through early summer, then resume in late summer for those fall harvests. The magic number for most succession plantings is every 2 to 3 weeks, but honestly, this isn't a rigid rule. Fast-growing crops like radishes might benefit from weekly plantings, especially if you love them, while slower crops like carrots might only need monthly sowings. Pay attention to your family's eating habits. There's really no point in having 6 heads of lettuce ready at once if you only eat 2 salads a week. Weather patterns also play a crucial role in timing. During the hottest part of summer, cool season crops may need more frequent plantings to account for faster bolting, or you might just skip certain periods altogether and resume in late summer when conditions improve. One of the biggest concerns I hear about succession planting is space management. I don't have room for multiple plantings, gardeners tell me. But here's the secret. Succession planting can actually help you use your space more efficiently, not less. So, the key here is really thinking in terms of garden zones instead of, having dedicated beds for each crop. Try creating sections where you can keep replanting as soon as spaces become available. For example, when you harvest a row of lettuce, go ahead and immediately prepare that space for the next planting. This kind of approach keeps your garden productive all season long, and it really helps prevent that feast or famine cycle that plagues so many vegetable gardens. Intercropping, well, it works beautifully alongside succession planting. You can plant quick-growing crops like radishes right between slower-growing plants such as tomatoes or peppers. By the time those larger plants need the space, your radishes are already ready to harvest. This technique is a great way to maximize every square inch of your garden. Container gardening. Honestly, it opens up even more possibilities for succession planting. You can have multiple containers at different stages of growth and move them around as needed for the best growing conditions. This approach is especially effective for folks gardening on apartment balconies or anyone with limited ground space. Continuous planting means, well, continuous soil management, and honestly, this is where a lot of gardeners stumble. Your soil needs to be ready to support multiple crops throughout the season, which really calls for a more thoughtful approach to fertility and soil health. Start with a solid foundation of compost or well-rotted manure worked right into your planting areas. But, don't stop there. Plan for ongoing soil amendments throughout the whole season. I like to keep a supply of compost and organic fertilizers on hand for quick soil refreshing between plantings. Consider the nutrient demands of your succession crops. Heavy feeders like lettuce and spinach will deplete soil nutrients pretty quickly, especially if you keep planting in the same area. Light applications of balanced organic fertilizer between plantings can keep your soil productive without overwhelming those young seedlings. Crop rotation principles apply even within succession plantings. Try not to plant the same family of crops in the same spot over and over throughout the season. Follow heavy feeders with light feeders or give the soil a break with nitrogen-fixing legumes like bush beans. Successful succession planting requires adapting your approach throughout the growing season. What works in cool spring weather won't necessarily work in the heat of summer or the shortening days of fall. Spring succession plantings can be aggressive since plants are eager to grow in the lengthening days and moderate temperatures. This is when I plant my heaviest rotations of cool season crops, taking advantage of optimal growing conditions. Summer requires more strategic thinking. Heat-sensitive crops may need partial shade or more frequent watering. Some crops, like lettuce, might be best skipped during the hottest weeks in favor of heat-tolerant alternatives like Swiss chard or New Zealand spinach. Fall succession planting is all about timing backward from your first frost date. Plants grow more slowly in shortening days, so you need to account for extended growing times. But the payoff is incredible. Fall vegetables often have the best flavor of the entire year. The difference between random planting and masterful succession planting often comes down to good record keeping. It's important to track what you plant, when you plant it, and how it performs. This information becomes, honestly, invaluable for refining your timing and quantities in future seasons. Be sure to keep notes on weather patterns, pest pressures, and even your family's preferences. For example, did the lettuce planted in mid-July bolt before you could harvest it? Make a note to skip that planting window next year. Was the fall spinach absolutely perfect? Mark those dates as must-plant periods. And, photography can be a powerful record-keeping tool too. Take pictures of your succession plantings at different stages to help you remember what worked well and what didn't. These visual records often capture details that written notes might miss. Succession planting isn't just about growing. It's about creating a sustainable system that really integrates with your harvesting and preservation plans. Staggered harvests mean you're less likely to be overwhelmed with produce, making fresh consumption a whole lot more practical. So, Plan your succession plantings around your preservation schedule. If you love making pesto, you'll want to plant basil successions timed for when you have a moment to process it. But if you prefer fresh eating, go for smaller, more frequent successions that match your own consumption patterns. Also, consider your storage capabilities when mapping out your plantings. Root vegetables like carrots and beets, for instance, can be stored a lot longer than leafy greens, so you might plant bigger successions less often. On the other hand, salad greens really need to be eaten fresh, so frequent small plantings just make more sense. Mastering succession planting, well, it's a journey, not really a destination. Every garden, every climate, and every family's needs are unique, so it's important to embrace the experimentation process. Start small, maybe with 1 or 2 crops you eat all the time, and then gradually expand your succession planting program as you build experience and confidence. Just remember, perfection isn't really the goal here. Improvement is. Even experienced gardeners have those seasons where the timing is off or, the weather just throws a curveball. The key is to learn from each season and adjust your approach as you go. The rewards of successful succession planting go way beyond just having fresh veggies on hand. You'll gain a deeper understanding of plant growth cycles, seasonal rhythms, and honestly, the whole intricate dance between gardener and garden. Plus, your cooking will get better as you work with truly fresh, perfectly timed harvests, and you'll waste less food since you're harvesting smaller amounts more often. I really hope this deep dive into succession planting has inspired you to give this technique a try in your own garden. It's one of those skills that feels a bit complicated at first, but with practice it honestly becomes second nature. Just remember, every expert gardener started out as a beginner who simply decided to try something new. If you found this guide helpful, don't forget to subscribe to Soil Sage Chronicles for more in-depth gardening content, and share this article with fellow gardeners who might benefit from mastering succession planting. Happy gardening, and here's to your most productive season yet.